The Supreme Court ruled on President Trump's travel ban and decided it was a constitutional win in a 5-4 split. The majority opinion written by Chief Justice John Roberts states that presidents have substantial powers to regulate immigration and that there is no claim of anti-Muslim bias in that policy. Protesters, though, have gathered outside of the Supreme Court following that ruling. Now, the policy includes a range of travel bans against 5 countries with higher Muslim populations, countries like Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen, and now 2 non-Muslim countries to include North Korea and Venezuela. So for more on this, we're being joined now by former Florida Democratic Party leader Mitch Ceasar and Ned Ryun, CEO of American Majority. Gentlemen, thanks for being with me tonight. So, Ned, I want to start with you on this. Ned, I want to give you first crack. Trump claims he is vindicated with the SCOTUS decision on his travel ban. Your take on it?
Well, I'm actually surprised we're even talking about it. In many ways, this I thought was very predictable. And the Supreme Court ruled that this was well within his right and scope, presidential rights and scope under the Immigration and Nationality Act, to be able to say these kind of people coming from these countries are detrimental to the interests of the United States. And the thing that's amazing to me in the hysteria surrounding Trump's travel ban is that pretty much every president since Carter has invoked this privilege. In fact, the one that's invoked the privilege the most since Carter has been Barack Obama. He invoked it 19 times, and the second one to invoke it the most was Clinton, 12 times. And so what the Supreme Court said today, he was well within his rights. This showed no hostility to a religion. And in fact, the Supreme Court also noted that the countries on the list had been put on that list essentially in the past by either Congress or previous administrations. And so they've said very bluntly, this is well within his scope. There's nothing wrong here, no hostility to religion. And I would argue it really doesn't matter sometimes what we're going to discuss and what we're going to debate. This is really about the American people looking at President Trump and saying in an era, in an age of radical Islam, President wants to keep us safe. It's well within his rights. Thank you for doing that.
Mitch, Justice Roberts, who did write the majority opinion, says this is actually simply about the courts not being able, or being in the position, rather, to denounce the president's statements. If SCOTUS is unable to check the president, who is in the position to check him?
Well, theoretically, Congress, but Republicans have shown a total lack of interest in doing that. This case really is an example of elections have consequences. The one who should be taking the victory lap is Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, not the president, actually, because he blocked Merrick Garland, which President Obama had a right to put on the court. I'm sure you'll not be shocked to know that I agree with the dissent opinion, which went along partisan lines 5-4 by, again, blocking the President Obama's pick and putting on a different justice once the election came around. And its result is clearly the fact that they said in the majority opinion that it was not a rejection or comes afoul of the First Amendment of free speech and of religion. Clearly, you have to look at intent. They kept using the phrase total Muslim ban the president did during the campaign and after. That shows a negative intent. I think this is going to go down, again, in a dustbin of history, just like the decisions to allow internment of the Japanese citizens of America during World War II, just like Plessy versus Ferguson on segregation in 1896. I think history will deal with this more. This has been a very recent partisan court, even based on their decisions on redistricting in Texas and other places. 5-4, straight down the line. They made the decision and try to contort the law, frankly, as a lawyer, to fit what they really wanted.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of could have expected that 5-4 to come down. But Ned, a moment ago you mentioned the case of national security. How do you respond then to folks who would reference the would-be terrorists like the shoe bomber Richard Reed? He's British. If the president is trying to frame this as a matter of national security, doesn't just one example like the shoe bomber shred that claim?
No, I mean, we have to remember the countries that are on this list, some of them are state sponsors of terrorism. You look at Venezuela and the ban is on government officials coming from Venezuela. You're dealing with essentially a failed state in South America. You know, at some point he has to take steps where he can constitutionally within his powers of the executive to be able to say, as best I can, I'm going to say we're not going to allow people to travel to this country from countries that I think have national security threats. And so, you know, again, as the executive, I don't think he can, again, block random like the shoe bomber. But at the same time, I think it's within his rights, and it's actually his responsibility to protect the American people. And I see nothing. I mean, people want to say Japanese-American internment camps. Come on, we're dealing with state sponsors of terror. And I think that's the right thing to do, especially in an era of radical Islam. The last thing that we want to see is actually Americans being attacked on our streets, vans being used as weapons. And you know what? I would rather we err on the side of safety. And I think that's what Trump has decided. I don't think this will go down in the dustpan of history. I think the American people will look at Trump and say, thank you for protecting us and thank you for being cautious.
All right, Mitch, I want to give you the final thoughts on that.
I'd like to add one quick point. We're talking about a terrorist watch list, in effect, or using all countries. If terrorism is our concern, which it should be, then why is Saudi Arabia and Pakistan not on the list?
Don't disagree with you.
Most of the 9/11 bombers, most of the 9/11 bombers were from Saudi Arabia. Pakistan has been sites of terrorism with for years, yet they're not on the list. That makes me think it's less about terrorism. It's more about playing to the base. It's more about a Muslim ban which runs afoul of the Constitution.
Well, first of all, I'm part of the Trump base, and I couldn't agree with you more about Saudi Arabia, and I think that's a real disappointment that they aren't on the list and that we're not taking a stronger stance on that, so I actually agree with you.
All right, and I will leave it right there where both of you guys agreed tonight. Thanks so much for chiming in with that. Mitch, Ceasar, Ned, Ryun, we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you, gentlemen.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.